Welcome to The Explainer. We all know artificial intelligence is changing our world, our jobs, our daily routines. But what if it's also changing, well, us? Today, we're digging into the research on how AI is fundamentally reshaping the way our brains actually work.
So, here's the big question, right? Is AI a bicycle for the mind? Something that helps us go further and faster than we ever could on our own? Or is it more like a mental wheelchair, making us weaker and more dependent with every single use? This one question is pretty much the entire debate in a nutshell. And believe me, the answer is not simple. Okay, so to really wrap our heads around this, we need to think about AI like any powerful new tool throughout history. It really can be used in two fundamentally different ways.
So, which one is it going to be? Is AI a lever, something that lifts everybody up and closes the gap in our abilities? Or is it a sword, a weapon that just makes the people who are already at the top even stronger, widening that gap and leaving everybody else behind?
All right, let's kick things off with the sunny side of the street, the idea that AI is actually going to be a great equalizer. And you might be surprised to hear there's some really powerful historical evidence to back this up. I want you to think back for a second. Back to when personal computers and the internet were just starting to take off. The Information and Communication Technology, or ICT, revolution of the 90s, well, it gives us a fantastic case study for how new tech can change things in ways nobody expects. Now, at first glance, it looked like a classic story of the rich getting richer, so to speak. If you look at the data, you can see the productivity of college graduates just skyrocketed, right? It totally widened the gap between them and high school graduates. The takeaway seemed obvious. Technology helps the most educated people the most. But here's where it gets really interesting. When researchers dug deeper and looked within those groups, so comparing high and low ability workers who had the exact same education level, they found the complete opposite. The technology actually narrowed the productivity gap. For people with the same schooling, it leveled the playing field for raw talent. And that right there is the big clue that maybe AI is on the same track. In fact, we're already seeing early signs that today's generative AI is doing just that. We're seeing studies pop up that show it gives a major leg up to lower skilled workers, whether they're in customer support, writing code, or even professional writing. Okay, but that's just one side of the coin. There's a much darker argument to be made here, that all this convenience comes at a really steep and kind of hidden price for our own minds. It all kicks off with this idea called cognitive offloading. And, we've always done this. We use a calculator for math, GPS for directions. But with AI, it's not just simple math anymore. We're handing over the heavy lifting of things like reasoning, structuring an argument, even coming up with creative ideas. And that can lead to what some researchers are calling cognitive debt. And here's the crucial question. What if AI isn't actually lifting the bottom up, but is instead just pulling the top down by making everyone less engaged and less thoughtful? And this image here, man, it really shows you the long-term risk. This cycle of offloading could lead to something called brain dormancy. You got to think of it like a muscle you just stop using. Those vital neural pathways for critical thinking, for memory, they can actually get weaker, leading to a real decline in our natural intelligence. As Professor Ayo Roxon says here, this isn't some totally new fear. We've already seen this with the internet's Google effect, right? When we know we can look something up in a second, we're just less likely to remember it. AI is basically that, but on steroids. So what does this cognitive debt actually look like inside our heads? Well, a recent, totally groundbreaking study from MIT gives us a direct window. Honestly, the results were just jaw-dropping. They used EEG scans to measure brain activity, and they found that brain connectivity for students using AI was cut almost in half. But get this, 83% of the AI users couldn't even remember a passage they had just produced with the tool. Think about that. They wrote it, but it never actually registered in their brain. You see, this goes way beyond just using a handy tool. One research paper even calls it a wrong addiction. It's that moment we stop using AI to help us think and just start letting it think for us. So there it is. That's the fork in the road we're standing at. AI as the great equalizer, or AI as the source of our own cognitive decline. But the good news is, nothing is written in stone here. The outcome really does depend on the choices we all make, starting right now. At the end of the day, it really boils down to this choice. Are we going to treat AI as a cognitive substitute that thinks for us, which leads to mental atrophy and just passively accepting whatever it gives us? Or are we going to use it as a cognitive partner,
a tool that boosts our own skills but demands our full, active engagement. And this, of course, means we have to completely rethink what we're doing in our schools. The goal can't just be about testing what a student knows anymore. We have to start evaluating students with these tools, teaching them how to use AI well, and maybe most importantly, when to be skeptical and push back on what it says.
And look, this isn't just about school kids. This is for every single one of us. Avoiding this cognitive debt means making a conscious effort. It means we have to engage our own brains, compare what the AI spits out with what we already know, and always, always use it as a brainstorming partner, not the final word. At the end of the day, the tech is only going to get smarter and more powerful. So the real question this research forces us to ask isn't about AI's limits. It's about the value we put on our own intelligence. In a world where you can outsource almost any thought, what parts of your own thinking are you willing to fight for?